Thank you. Glare. More of a glare than there usually.
Oh, that's because the sun's out more.
I think it's from that light.
Maybe you just.
Yeah, I
can't see
always
that
look over
far.
here on this one,
Oh,
and it usually hits about the same time that one does.
oh. Get that one. I'd like to call this meeting to order, Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is May 23, 2023. We're in the Frank Walter House Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Here.
Not is excused. Markey,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Roloffs,
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
Worsakki.
Here. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. Ask for your guidance with the decisions we'll make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. In the name of your Son, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Accept the EMS, folks. Thank you. On your feet, folks. Stay standing up for the EMS. Thank you for being here today. This week is EMS recognition. We have a tribute that I would like to read. With compassion, determination, and skill, EMS providers embody the best in our nation. Paramedics and emergency medical technicians provide aid after medical emergencies, disasters, and ease our suffering in countless ways. The unwavering commitment of Benzie County EMS to public service often comes at the cost of their own physical well-being, mental health, and precious time with loved ones. Emergency medical services are a vital public service to the people of our community. The members of Benzie County's EMS teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. During Emergency Medical Services Week, we share our appreciation for the selfless EMS professionals who provide life-saving services every day and risk their lives each time they answer the call of service. Our nation and our county owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to these heroes and their loved ones. I, Bob Roloffs, Board of Commissioners, Chair of Benzie County, do hereby give this tribute to Benzie County EMS in celebration of Emergency Medical Services Week, May 21 through 27, 2023. And I call upon all government officials, parents, teachers, school administrators, caregivers, business leaders, nonprofit organizations, and the people of Benzie County to observe this week and thank their county EMS personnel for their service to our community. Personally, I want to thank you all very much. I am one of the people that have used Benzie County's EMS. So when you call 911 and they come, remember who they are and what they stand for. We appreciate what you do for us. Thank you all. Tom King, thank you very much, sir. Sweet. I've been told to pull item E off of action items, consider adopting bomb swatting threat policy. If there's no other changes,
Make a motion to approve as amended.
9 seconds.
motion and support. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Regular meeting minutes, May 9, 2023.
Laura moves to accept as presented.
Mark will support.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, so moved. Closed session. May 9th, 2023. Sorry.
Laura moves to accept closed session minutes as presented.
Nine seconds.
Motion and support, further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so moved. Brings us to our public hearing for the hazard mitigation plan. As the county has been working with Networks Northwest for some time to update this hazard mitigation plan, you'll find that in your packet today. On Tuesday, Stephanie Marchbanks of Network Northwest and Emergency Management Coordinator Rebecca Hubers will present to answer any questions the board may have.
Good morning. We're at the public hearing portion of adopting our natural hazard mitigation plan. Natural hazards are those hazards that have to do with weather or other events that normally aren't within our control, not to be confused with like hazardous materials or anything like that. I've been to each of your communities a couple different times during this process. First with the starting and the last with the identifying and communicating strategies. So you've probably seen me at that. This is hopefully going to be this final draft version where we put it through public hearing. And then if there's no major changes or objections, we get those changes put and sent to the state. The state needs to adopt it. And it is again a representation or a checkbox for FEMA, which allows us to take care of hazard things. If anything happens, FEMA always looks to see if that box is checked in order to help us move forward if we should have an event. So Benzie County does this every 5 years. It probably takes 2 or 3 years just to get it done. Your local emergency planning committee has been working diligently the last couple of years, working on these strategies and updating it, and they've seen this plan a dozen times. It's also there's a link on our website as well for the public to have that opportunity. It was posted this meeting and the link were posted in the newspaper for public access. And so I'm here to answer any of the local questions. Stephanie is with Networks Northwest. Their agency has been fantastic. I'm building this 100 and some odd pages worth of maps and statistics and
I
things
think
like
we
that.
noticed that.
Yes, the packet was like, oh, okay, that's her fault. All right.
So this gives the opportunity for the public to pose any questions and or any comments about the mitigation plan, and then we will move forward. Is there any public?
We have to open
Annie, can you please come to the podium so the people online can hear you?
it. Oh,
My name is Annie Browning. I live in the village of Beulah. My question is, what do you think? Sorry, I keep trying to make eye contact. I'm wondering what the most likely hazard would be from the environment. Just out of curiosity, what's the most likely probability?
The most common is extreme winter weather.
Right, okay, so not much to worry about right now. Okay, cool. Thank you.
The other common thing that occurs and we've addressed with hazard mitigation in Benzie County before is flooding. We have very several locations of high water tables that we acknowledge during our strategies, and we we keep those in mind and in check and even things like some erosion and stuff from when the water was high in Lake Michigan. That is all a natural impact.
Good morning, Stephanie Marchbanks. Rebecca did a great job summarizing, what's been going on in the past almost 2 years. We've been working with the county emergency management, to help them update their 5-year plan. The last plan was done in 2015. FEMA has updated their requirements for what goes into a plan. So that's partly why you have so many pieces of paper in front of you. They really want to see local evidence of local jurisdiction participation. And so we've certainly done that with Rebecca's help because she's just been great going out to the local communities to get input on, the hazards that they have most concern, along with the strategies we develop to mitigate those hazards. Essentially, the purpose of it is, to lessen the impact of natural disasters on people, property, and the environment. FEMA requires this. If a local community or your county wants to apply for pre-disaster FEMA grants, you have to have a current approved 5-year mitigation plan. And so we're trying to check all the boxes with their requirements. And so one of the benefits is you could apply for potential projects such as retrofitting infrastructure and buildings, getting some backup generators, safe room or shelter construction, and flood risk reduction projects. And so if you read through the plan, the bulk of it is the hazard analysis section. So that describes for every hazard, the definition, the location, the extent, previous occurrences, and the probability of events of it occurring. And so we cover extreme winter weather, which is the most common, thunderstorms and high winds, those are grouped together, lightning, hail, rivering and urban flooding. You also have shoreline erosion and flooding because of your Lake Michigan communities, dangerous currents on Lake Michigan, tornadoes, extreme temperatures, wildfire, drought, and invasive terrestrial and aquatic species, which was not included in the last plan. We also include a couple non-natural hazards, which are public health emergencies and potential dam failure. There's also a section in the plan on expected impacts from climate change in the Great Lakes region. So we talk about that a bit. When we get into the strategies table, which is how you would implement, the plan essentially, they're grouped according to different categories. So you have awareness and preparation strategies. You have shelters, buildings, roads and dams, utilities and technology, and environment and natural resources. And so one strategy can address multiple hazards. And so that's what you see in that complicated table. And so the LEPC determine the priority level of a high, medium, or low for each of those strategies. Essentially, the high priority ones included critical infrastructure projects. So a lot of the road projects, improvement projects are rated high. Something you already had in place for an enforcement standard based on the level of need, the economic impact, and the high probability of immediate impacts to public health or safety. The medium level, priority level included education or planning, did not have immediate impacts to public health or safety, but may have impacts to specific residents or visitors. And a low priority was in the foreseeable short or long-term health and safety impacts. They may change within the next 5 years, but it's just kind of on the list as it's not a super high priority. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely to happen. So essentially, this has been available to the public online for about a month. I have not received any public comment from anybody. And this is the final public hearing. So any questions,
Thank you.
comments?
All set?
Gary, go ahead.
I was looking at your organizational sheets here.
Yes.
And they need some updating.
Okay.
I'm just looking at my townships and a couple other ones. Get the correct names in here. I would think,
So-
maybe you don't, maybe it's not that important. I just,
That isn't for accuracy. Those are actually people that I talked to. So if like your township had a different board member when I went the first time, that board member is listed and then there should be another board member listed if I visited the second time, if that makes sense. So maybe they held
Well,
that title at one time.
I'm looking at Gilmore Township. They had quite a turnover. Actually have clerk and the treasurer switched jobs and they got in a new. So I don't know if you need that or not, but it just, that struck out at me.
Yeah, we took it off the minutes of every meeting, so if their title was in there. So again, they had a different clerk when I went the first time in 2022, and then we had a different second.
Just didn't know how accurate you wanted.
Yeah, we'll put, if they're no longer in that position, we'll put in parentheses form next to their name. So that they're still acknowledged as participating, but they're not currently holding that.
Okay, all right.
Position.
I didn't look at it that way.
So
I
we'll
just looked at it
update
as a-
that.
Yeah, I know that at one point it said, Rebecca Hubers, 911 director,
Some of them
but I
I
was
saw.
the 911 director at one point, so, and then later on, Corey Ellis is addressed when he attended a meeting. So there's multiple versions. Banning for 2 years. They held that.
I have a quick question. Out of curiosity, I know there were residents in the district I served that were having difficulty with their insurance companies because of the flood zone delineation. Does the municipality's cooperation with this effort, does that satisfy what the insurance companies are looking for?
They still have to do that public, their public acceptance, like Elmira Township did and Crystal Lake Township did. Your township still has to adopt that they accept that, those maps and there's a process, and I gave that to them.
Okay,
In Sansonia. And I think it needs to be presented to the county because some of that falls under the county building codes. And so that we also need to acknowledge it. We did that for Elmira, we did that for Crystal Lake. No commitment on your end, it's just you're accepting that they're adopted.
so Benzonia has a few more steps they need to take.
They do.
Thank you.
This is that process, and Alberta is supposed to be doing that as well. And just for historical reference, we did use this plan to prior to me actually purchase property near the outlet because of constant flooding. FEMA gave that person or us money to purchase that property to relieve her of constant flooding. And so that's kind of the purpose, and the backup generators in certain township offices that box happens. Those are projects.
Chair. I have a question, and Stephanie, I really appreciate that you said that you didn't hear from the public, but I have heard from the public quite a bit about
Okay.
this one item.
Okay.
So I'll speak on their behalf on that. On page 10,
Mhm.
it says kind of towards the bottom there, ongoing enforcement, soil erosion, permitting, and then permits and inspections based on code.
Mhm.
Having those permits done before the first shovel goes in. Is there anyone that follows through on that or has? Because that is a concern.
You don't enforce that, that's the buildings department, I believe, that has your soil erosion.
Okay,
Responsibilities, so it really has to go through that department. This is an overall view of that says that
Okay.
it's done. But that's and they're still working through that. They had asked me a couple of questions.
okay. I just wanted to say that on behalf of the public because that issue has come up.
And it depends.
Quite a bit of time.
A little bit different. Now, Crystal Lake may have adopted someone else to enforce their soil erosion. I have to look that up. We had a list that we
Okay.
sent. But if Crystal Lake says that, the buildings department enforces their soil erosion, that's okay. But if they have it listed somewhere else, it's whoever they enlisted.
So, okay, just an overview, but for public's benefit on that.
Anybody else? I
Any
believe
other
so.
public-
Yep, is there any other public input? So there's a recommended motion if somebody would like to
While having participated quite a bit in this process, I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approve the draft hazard mitigation plan for review by the state, Michigan State Police and FEMA.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
We will close this public hearing.
Mr. Shower, if you'll give me a list of something you think might be missing, I'll make sure.
Maybe all we need to do is put former. I am.
Thank you. And now we're gonna have our first public input. Is there anybody in the crowd that would like to speak? Sir?
My name is Richard Hahn and I live at 10243 Main Street in Honor. We own the Sleeping Bear Riverside Cabins and also the laundromat in Frankfurt. You've heard from my wife several times relative to ARPA, and she got heavily involved in it back in 2021, understanding reading the law and what did the law have to say. My basic understanding was ARPA was out there to provide funds so that to eliminate or reduce the risk associated with any future pandemic. And that's the kind of what we started with, and I think you all received a memo from her. Back on September 7th of 2021, she wrote a email to Katie requesting with a description, no cost necessarily associated with it, but a description of what we wanted to do, which was basically completely tear down, renovate the laundromat in Frankfurt. We've since looked at it and have come up with that the best thing to efficiently use funds would be to replace we have three Milner washers. People want to know what's the age of them. I can't tell you. I can tell you that they're older than 1973 or 1983 when the laundromat was built, because they were put in at that point in time. However, that owner removed all of the tags from the machines. So I don't have any serial numbers or any dates, but I can tell you that they are at least 40 years old. We've had continual problems with maintaining them. The last one was in January. We have three of them. They're 35-pound machines. They're the machines that everybody likes to use. Two of them were down. We had the only place we could get service is out of Saginaw. There's no local service provided anymore. And it cost us $1,600 to get them back running. To find out that one of the machines, the bearing seal is completely gone. So basically the bearing's running on water. Bearings don't like to run on water. We know that one's going to fail soon, and the other two aren't far behind it. So what we're requesting, our request was for $28,450, which is based on the quote from A&B Equipment, which you should have received, to replace those three with two 40-pound Dexter machines, which are made in the US. So that's our request, and we'd like to ask the board for some kind of decision relative to that request. I think we've been told, well, the money's committed. Well, that means that it may not have been spent yet. But any questions, I'm open to.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public input? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Chris Kitzman. I am a resident of Benzonia Township. I would like to address two quick little comments relative to your action item B, your prioritization of goals and the strategies to implement them. I think they both come under the county services section, and the first one relates to your strategy to achieve effective external communication with the community by engaging in positive outreach. I would like you to consider publishing a synopsis of the approved minutes after each month in the Record Patriot or some print media. something like a commissioner corner. I don't think there's easy access necessarily to information other than, and you may find this, as I do, very ironic. Look it up on the internet. I know broadband is one of the goals and easy access is another one, and we need to do that better. Not everybody can do that. So I think that there would be a great way to access commissioner action items if you would just do a quick little synopsis from the minutes, make it available to the public other than on the website and via the YouTube channel, both of which are commendable. Please consider that. The other one fits under county enhanced county services also, and I would seriously ask you to revisit the some form of awareness and coordination of zoning throughout the county. I know that local control is important to this commission, and that I also know that townships are working really hard to keep their master plans updated. I'm a very strong proponent of the upcoming Crystal Lake watershed overlay zoning ordinances, some of the teeth in that ordinance, but I don't think a lot of people know about that. Our watersheds and our geographic features don't follow political boundaries, as you're well aware. And I also think that there's a lot of development coming up in Benzonia, in Benzie County, that we really need to pay attention to. So if you would think about coordinating that, I think that's a strong role for this body and finding a way to make sure that each township knows what each other township is doing and that the citizens you represent are up to speed on that also.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other public input? All righty, we're gonna close public input. And move into finance.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills for $411,179.98.
I'll support.
Thank you. There's a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Elected officials, department heads. Doug? I'm gonna ask you to be somewhat brief, Doug, so. I know that you're not your norm, but
Good morning, Doug Duran from Benzie Senior Resources. Just a couple of quick updates. We did start a new foot care clinic in our outreach program at Michigan Shores last week. We'll be out there again next week on the 30th, and then we'll every 8 weeks. All of my 4 nurses now are doing electronic charting. They have received laptops, so it's our pilot program as we venture into the rest of our home health care staff. June 11th is a golf outing on behalf of Benzie Senior Resources from the Jamie Gray Group and Crystal Lake Golf Course. That's all I have. I have my packet. Any questions?
We're gonna have to call Art, I think.
Yeah.
He always-
I thought it was interesting that you changed your benefit package probation period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
To
I,
make it more competitive. out there.
right, right. Are you finding that to be a good move or don't know yet?
We did receive one new person that was very happy to have that change. As they went from their other full-time job to ours. They only had a 30-day lapse and they did the Cobra at their other place. So, yeah. Thank you.
any other questions? Nope. Thanks, Doug.
Record time. Thank you.
Other department heads? We've got a 9:30 closed session, Nate, so if you can.
I will try to move through this dashboard as quickly as possible, but also leave it up to you all to have questions.
Thank you.
So in your packet, I provided a operations dashboard that moving forward on your sessions, you'll be provided this report, whether I'm able to be present to present or not, just to keep you all apprised of what's going on. In healthcare, it's common to use metrics dashboards when presenting information, whether it be to a governing body or to a board of directors, or even to managers and staff. And so I wanted to give you information that gives a well-rounded picture of the operation in a very palatable format. Just to start, the information includes census and occupancy, admissions and referrals and discharges, where we stand in terms of CMS 5-star ratings, and also providing comparison of other county nursing homes and the other nursing home here in Benzie County. Current staffing, opening positions, and then also financial information, including our revenue and operation expenses, capital investment needs, as well as days cash on hand. And so please know that this is always going to be a snapshot. When I completed this report last Thursday to submit to you all, it was 100% accurate. As of today, there's some information that's changed a little bit. But just to move through it very quickly, at the moment, we're at a census of 75, which is an occupancy of 96%. We have 2 beds that must be reserved for COVID purposes, and we cannot use them for anything else. At present, of our 75 residents, 78% of them represent Benzie residents or Benzie family. Month to date, we've received 29 referrals. Of those 29, we've accepted 12 and admitted 9. And so that's where the conversion ratio comes in. Of the referrals that we accept, how many do we actually receive? The 3 that we did not receive, we were first choice. Unfortunately, 2 of those individuals tested positive for COVID in the hospital, and 1 other passed away under hospice services in the hospital. Of the referrals that we both approved and received, 100% of those were Benzie family. Moving over into the 5-star categories. So CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, this is the federal entity that oversees Medicare and Medicaid programs. They provide information on nursinghomecompare.com that's available for all customers, families, and any person interested in investigating senior services for a loved one. And they break down the 5-star ratings into 4 categories: quality measures, staffing, health inspection, and then an overall grade. The Maples at present is 5 stars overall, 4 stars in health inspection, 5 in staffing, and 4 in quality measures. I'll always include Paul Oliver, Manistee County Medical Care Facility, and Pavilions Grand Traverse, just so that you can see, where we stack up and how we're performing in comparison to other providers in the area. At present, we have 95 active employees, both full-time and part-time individuals. Of those, 80% are Benzie residents. We currently have 27 open positions, and we're utilizing 18 contract staff. I attended the Leading Age Michigan Conference last week in Kalamazoo, and some of the interesting metrics shared from some of the keynote speakers. At present, 96% of healthcare providers in the nation are experiencing staffing. We are not unique to that. When looking at the other facilities here that I've added in the comparison, the only building that is not actively using contract staffing is Manistee. And that's because they've made an operational decision to close a portion of their building and reduce census. And then when we go into the finances on the backside of the report, you'll always have the most up-to-date information. You'll see where our revenues, where our department operating expenses are, and then ultimately where we stand in terms of a net gain or loss. This information does not include the month of April. We're just now closing our books on April. And so at the next report, that information will be included in that spreadsheet as well. And then also with capital improvements, some of these quotes are quite old. Some of them actually predate my tenure at the Maples. This is going to be something that continues to update and evolve as we continue to prioritize the capital investment needs of the Maples, as well as what the most up-to-date quotes are. But just so that we always have a running idea of what's on the horizon and what those potential costs may be. And then finally, days cash on hand. At present, we're at 115 days cash on. And this is a number that's going to fluctuate. With us being such a small building, having a census of 70 versus 74, that can equate to $40,000 or so in operating income. And so it is important to us to make sure that from a financial standpoint, as well as a mission standpoint, that we're always serving as many people as. I've ran through this report rather quickly. I'd like to be able to answer any questions and then get you all to your next agenda item.
Perfect. Question?
Are you going to make that report available every month to the public as well, like on your website or whatever, or?
So at present, I haven't had that plan. It's certainly something that we could discuss with our board. As of right now, it is my intention to make it available to county commissioners. And so obviously in this public setting, that information will always be made available. I'll be presenting it to our board, the MDHHS board, as well. And truly, the Maples is a community benefit organization. We want to be transparent with every single stakeholder. And so any person who would benefit from knowing this information, we want them to know.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else? Tim?
Yeah, love the report. I'm looking forward to seeing it every month. But looking at the numbers, I'm not gonna remember exactly from month to month what they were. So if there's anything that like drastically changes, could you make sure you highlight that for us?
Absolutely.
That way, if there's any outliers or whatever like that, we can, oh, this was a significant change. That way we have an idea that it occurred.
I'd be happy to do that. And perhaps maybe additionally, on a quarterly basis, I can provide trending data.
Okay.
That way we can see over a few months, what the changes are in the various KPIs.
Very good. Brenda?
Yeah, thanks for the report. It is very helpful. Being 27 members of your staff short has to be daunting on the staff that you have because you give 24-hour care. How is that wear and tear? How's that showing? How are you coping with being almost a quarter down in the staffing that you require?
I saw a statistic, an article recently in a healthcare provider journal. 75% of healthcare workers across the country report burnout. That's up from 60% when that statistic was taken in 2018. I would be lying to you if I said that it's not had an effect. I think that the challenges facing the healthcare industry is impacting every person at every level of those healthcare providers. What we have to focus on is the work that we are there to do every day and making sure that we are supporting our staff, our residents, and our families to the best of our abilities. Last week was National Nursing Home. And so we were able to do some really amazing things for residents, families, and our staff. And, that celebration is something that we want to carry in our work every day. And we want to help folks see that there's a greater purpose to working in healthcare and serving the elderly of our community and helping them see that you can be incredibly fulfilled and still make a paycheck. And we need more folks to be interested in healthcare. And the reality is the last few years have created a bit of an exodus. And hopefully in the future, as we move out of the COVID healthcare emergency, we'll see people returning. But in the meantime, we have to do everything we can to support our staff. And so looking at our contingency or our contract staffing that we have in place, we don't want to lower census because then we're not supporting as many people as possible. The other reality is when you maintain a low occupancy, your reimbursement rates for Medicare and Medicaid are affected. So we've got that piece, but then we also recognize we want to prevent burnout. We want to make sure that staff are able to have time off, that we're mandating as little as possible, that we're approving people's vacation. And that's part of the approach to why we have contract staff. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent our current staff from feeling as though there's nothing else. I don't want folks to leave. I think it's an incredibly rewarding and important industry. It's vital. And we need to make sure that people feel supported while coming to work.
Very good. Any other questions?
Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry there. I just want to thank you for this. It's very informative for me. And it will be on our website included in the packet. So that information is available for the public, but it's great to see that, county-run agencies that you, from the same inspectors, scored so high on that. And from reading your mission, you guys are fulfilling it. So I just want to say thank you for this information.
I just want to thank Nate for giving me a tour the other day and
Oh,
addressing some of the issues and taking time out of his day. I know it's a busy place. Thank you again.
Well, no, it's our pleasure. And as always, for any county commissioner, for any person that is ever interested in learning more about the Maples, our operation, COVID has really, really started to tail off. And it's much easier for us to accept visitors and for us to provide tours. We're happy to share the work that we do with any person who's interested. And whether or not you have a loved one who might be in need of services, if you know of someone who might be interested in a rewarding career working for a county-owned community benefit organization, that's what we're here for. We're here to help. We're here to hire, and we're here to serve.
So I'll follow up from Gary a little bit. Had a request from one of the Grand Traverse County new commissioners. He had did a walkthrough at the pavilions and called to see if I could set up a walkthrough at the Maples, and I joined in. Megan gave Scott and I a tour, and of course, knowing me, there's people up there I know, and residents, a couple of residents that I know, and so it was kind of nice. And when we finished up, had a nice chat with Megan. Scott and I walked out to the parking lot to part ways, and he said, hands down, this is the top compared to especially the pavilions in Grand Traverse County. So hats off to you and your staff. These people truly care, and that's what makes this a positive entity.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty. So in accordance, I'll make a motion in accordance to MCL 15.268C. We go into closed session to discuss strategy in accordance with FOPLC bargaining unit.
Deputies.
I didn't want to say that. I want to say bargaining unit.
Be one of those days. I'll support.
Thanks, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll be back shortly, folks.
Won't work, huh?
You're unmuted.
One in parentheses.
One in parentheses.
The one that says I move.
Hold on.
It's 9:54. We're back in session.
I'd like to make a motion. I move to ratify the tentative agreement previously ratified by the FOPLC deputies bargaining for the 2023 reopener and authorize the board chair to sign the letter of agreement to make the agreed upon change as approved as to form by the county's legal counsel.
I'll support.
Gary. Motion is support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
So just to follow up, is there any more elected officials or department heads like to comment? Rebecca?
Morning, Rebecca Hubers, Office of Emergency Management. I think there's a little break in the cyber incident policy, and I wanted to talk quickly about the basement. My Homeland Security hat,
That's the first floor, ma'am.
sorry, the first floor. We don't want to call it the basement. The lower level of Sheriff's Department. I know that will be on a later agenda, but I'm giving the opportunity if someone wants to get a visual with the drawings in the space that I can make that available. What I didn't want to do, or I asked the administration not to do, was to put all of the drawings and specs on public record in the packet, because as my Homeland Security hat, some of that stuff is, that is supposed to be a secure facility, a secure infrastructure, and that shouldn't be available for anybody to find later on the internet to abuse. Same with the upcoming cyber incident policy. There's just certain tactics that we need to remain secure so that other people don't find our vulnerabilities. So if there's ever questions about those, I will gladly answer them independently. I just wanted to put that out there. That's kind of why it's not shady. It's just protected infrastructure information is how best identified.
Good.
Other than that, the young man sitting there is Jacob Balhorn, and he is our criminal justice intern for the building for the summer. He will be making his way around the building if you happen to see him, working with indigent defense and the prosecutor's office a little bit, maybe MDOC, to get a good perspective on what direction he wants to run his criminal justice career in the future. He's graduating from Ferris.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I went to Ferris.
Mr. Vandercook, we'll move right into you, sir. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. I am Terry Vandercook. I'm the CEO at Networks Northwest. Thank you for this opportunity today. But really, thank you for your continued support of our organization of Networks Northwest. We have a longstanding relationship with Benzie County, as well as the other 9 counties that we serve through the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments. We do business as Networks Northwest. And what I really want to talk with you today a little bit about is some of our current services, specifically specific to Benzie County. I think that's really important. You did receive our 2022 annual report. If you had a chance to look through that, you'll notice that our service lines are really broken into 3 categories: talent, business, and community. That is how our staff, we're 88 people strong. That's how we reach out to our communities. Talent, we're largely Northwest Michigan Works, a name that many people are familiar with. But we do a lot of other things as well. We do youth programming, adult education, and things of that nature, which I'll talk a little bit about. From a business standpoint, we offer some services in the community that other people simply do not. If you're a small or large business in the community and you want to export your goods, pick a country, and you don't have the technical knowledge, you've never done that before, we have a team of folks that can step in and help a small business export into whatever country that might be, whether that's actually a goods or service. We have a lot of folks take advantage of that. We also help individuals in that same sense do business with foreign governments. So it's one thing to export your product. It's another thing to form relationships with foreign communities, foreign countries, and move your business forward. And then we also help businesses navigate doing business with governments, especially at the federal level, that there's a lot of bureaucracy there. It's very difficult to navigate. Our team will actually step in, help an individual first become a qualified vendor, if you would, with the federal government, and then ultimately help them find, attract, and win bids, and then execute those contracts. But they do that with the federal government. They do that with state governments. They do it with local, county, hospitals and universities are included. So that's our business piece. Wrapping that up with community, much as you saw today, Stephanie's on our community development team. She's one of our professional planners. She's obviously worked with your hazard mitigation plan. I'll talk a little bit more here in just a minute about some other specific community development projects that we're working on in Benzie County. So I think what I'm going to do, as opposed to going through the annual report itself, because obviously this has been generalized for the 10 counties, I'm going to speak to you about some specific things we're doing here in Benzie County. Feel free to interrupt me. It's going to seem like I'm just kind of running through a list, but I think it's the best way to get the information to you. Feel free to interrupt me at any time if you want to talk about any other specific piece of that. We'll start with talent. And when we talk about talent, we talk about being demand driven. So it's important for us to know what the employers need. If we're going to expend training dollars, if we're going to help find recruits, if we're going to help staffing issues, we need to know what the employer needs. Because if we go out and train, and it's cliche, but if we train widget makers and the community doesn't need a widget maker, then we've expended funds and we've led somebody down a road that's not necessary. So one program that really focuses on the employer and their needs is the Going Pro Talent Fund. If you've not heard of the program, it's been around for almost 8 years now at the state level. It's employer training grants. Your Benzie County employers and businesses can only access that funds by working with one of our Michigan Works representatives. A few months ago, they released what they referred to as round 1 of Going Pro Talent Fund for 2022. Benzie County employers netted almost $300,000 in training grants. In fact, they netted $297,353 in training grants. That's 6 employers. So those 6 employers, it made a big impact. Through that, they're going to train 189 employees. That is new employees that they already have on staff, somebody that they can skill up, but it's also new hires, right? So it's economic prosperity. And 45 apprentices will be involved in those training grants. So fantastic program. We're happy to have it across the region. There's a current application open now for another $12 million across the state. I can tell you as a Michigan Works agency director as well, and there's 16 of us in the state, we have gone to the state of Michigan and we're looking for a higher allocation in the coming years for this program because it is so incredibly successful. We're asking the state for $100 million. Last cycle, we had 50 million. Big jump, but it's definitely a pro, and it's easy for employers to access. So something we all want to keep in mind. So we also provide services directly to job seekers. And these are job seekers that our professional counselors are meeting with one-on-one, resumes, job searches, interviewing skills, whatever it might be that's going to get that individual job ready. And then once we have them job ready, can we connect them to employment? We do a lot of this at Bacon. So we have a longstanding relationship with Bacon. Every week we have an individual that goes to Bacon between 10 and 2, and they meet with individuals who are going down that career path. Many of the services I just mentioned, but it's kind of one-on-one. Let's get together and let's talk that through. Because we don't have an actual brick and mortar Michigan Works Center in Benzie County, our staff makes themselves available to get out into the community. We do that through your county jail, an incredible relationship that we have with those folks. You may have seen it on 9 and 10 just a week or so ago. We're actually going in there now and working with those incarcerated individuals for soft skills. So once they leave the system, are they prepared to go look for work? And again, can we help with interviewing skills? Can we help with presentation? Can we help with resumes? We're really happy to be doing that. We have a grant that allowed us to partner with the criminal justice system for the opioid crisis. So again, we can work with those individuals that are suffering from that and get them moved through. We are offering service at your Chamber of Commerce, your courthouse, the Benzie Area Resource Center. We work with the Sobriety Court, the County Library in Benzie, Thompsonville and Frankfurt. And again, what we're trying to do is simply bring the services to the people, because oftentimes we find that the folks, if you're meeting with Michigan Works, something's not right in your life in the first place, or you'd be employed and you'd be working. And a lot of times the fact that you're not employed, you're not working makes it difficult for you to find us. So we go to try to find them. What's that mean numbers wise? Since 2020, the end of 2022, we've served 881 individuals in Benzie County with the type of services that I've just mentioned. In the last several months, that number's been 246. So variety of services, but again, it's people that couldn't access us without our support in trying to get out into the community.
What was that number again?
Since 2021, we've served 881
Thank you.
individuals. So we are, for the 10 counties of Northwest Michigan, Northwest Michigan Works, of course, our subsidiary for talent. We are the only adult ed provider in the 10 counties. We provide adult ed services at Bacon. We have for quite a while. In this past year, typically we average between 7 and 15 adult ed students any given year through that program. They can meet us there. We have a teacher, we have a state certified teacher that's there 3 days a week. That student can come to Bacon and meet us, but we also make it available for them to study at home or study from a distance. We provide a hotspot, we provide a Chromebook. Our teachers are available for online instruction. And again, it's trying to help that individual get across the line. So there are currently 9 folks enrolled in our adult ed program at Bacon. We just had graduation a couple of weeks ago, and we graduated 5 adult ed learners from Benzie County at that graduation. So we were really happy to support them as well. And I know I'm pushing this out there, so if there's questions, by all means, let's talk about those as well. Apprenticeships, when you look at training, when you look at the fact that we need more individuals in the workforce, not all of those individuals should be connected to a 4 or a 2-year college. There's great jobs in our communities that simply don't require that, but they require some level of post-secondary credential, some level of training. We do that through apprenticeships. We are an apprenticeship sponsor at Northwest Michigan Works, at Networks Northwest with the DOL, which means we can step in, connect to an employer, and take the administrative burden off that employer as far as dealing with the Department of Labor, which is a big reason why a lot of small employers simply don't go down the registered apprenticeship road, because it is really quite burdensome. So if we can do that, and we have small employers, so people often think of apprenticeships, which are great, of being 150 electricians or 200 plumbers, and maybe in some of our bigger communities down south that's the case, but up here when we need smaller apprenticeships, our team stands ready to do that. A great example is the fact that in this county we have winemaker apprentices, we have beekeeping apprentices, we have apprentices at Honor Bank, Lakeshore Custom Homes, Fieldcraft, More Mechanical has apprenticeships in this community. We step in. In fact, there's 7 programs and 34 active apprentices right now in your county that are connected to our program. Some of these are a year long, some of these are 3-year long. That is really driven by the employer themselves. They get to work with us and determine what that training needs to look like and what that length should be as well. And then just to wrap up that community piece, I already talked a little bit about the work that Stephanie does. You've heard from her in the hazard mitigation. Our team of planners are also in your community working through a rural task force through Michigan Department of Transportation. I believe some work on your Benzie County master plan as well is still ongoing. We've done some work with a recreation director feasibility study. We're working with Thompsonville on a recreation plan, and then obviously a large EDA trails plan and project that went on kind of connecting this county to Manistee. So that's my outpouring. So that's what I know we're doing in Benzie County. So happy to answer any questions, dig a little deeper into any of those items if you should so choose.
And I'll just add that they were very helpful with recruiting an adult ed teacher for our jail. So Jackie and Lieutenant Smith worked with Networks Northwest, specifically Christine Nelson, to get a person up there since our prior adult ed teacher had passed away. So they were very helpful in that process as well.
And thank you for that. So that's an interesting point to bring up. So the way that we receive adult ed funding, we have to specifically request funding for us to provide the services directly through that funding source for jail systems. We hadn't previously had that in our grant. So we get to rewrite our grant in 2024. We are going to add that so we can even kind of kick up that level of services. But in the meantime, we're really happy to be able to connect and do what we can. It's a great program there at the jail. They've been incredibly supportive.
Any other question?
I have. I'm here.
I don't mind.
Okay. I skipped to the blue top ones for the business, and this is just for my own information. These are maybe beginning businesses or struggling businesses with needs. Does Northwest give them HR or legal support?
On a limited basis. So we are not specifically HR generalists or HR directors, if you would, but we do have a lot of community connections. We have a lot of folks that we work very closely with. So if we met with an employer and they specifically said, hey, I have an HR need, and it's beyond our capability, we just connect them with a partner, ensure they still receive the service.
Okay, networking.
Yeah, we do three things in our organization. We lead, we convene, and we support. So there are some projects that it makes sense in your county and other counties that we lead. We've got the funding, we've got the expertise, and we want to come in and we want to lead that. And there's others that we convene really well. So across the region, we just received a $160,000 grant to continue to plan and to look at the childcare crisis, right? We need to make it more accessible. We're not childcare providers. It's not necessarily our area of expertise, but we use our funding to convene all of those individuals across 10 counties that should be looking at that. And then sometimes I tell folks, we just support. Your county could have a great program going on. You don't need me to lead it. You don't need us to convene it, but boy, we can slip in there and we can support in some way, whether we're at the table for the discussion, whether we can add some funding to the situation. We are more than willing to take on any of those three roles that makes the most sense for our partners.
You have any washing machines for sale?
Sir, I do not have any washing machines. I do not, but we could probably train an apprentice and get them fixed up. So again, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate being here.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Terry.
Smile on your face, isn't it?
I was told to smile. I'm on camera.
Right. What was the action items? 21-22 audit.
At your last meeting, you heard from Aaron Stevens of Manning Casterison, who is our auditor. And this action is a housekeeping action simply to accept the audit as presented.
Take that motion.
I'll second that.
We should have done it that day, but
It doesn't really matter.
Motion and support. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sauer,
yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Adopt Benson County strategic priorities and goals to include discussion requested by Commissioner Cunningham.
So over the last few months, we've been talking about goals and priorities and paths forward and what we want to do as a county. And so we do have a document in there that we talked about at the last meeting as well. Commissioner Cunningham did have some thoughts to add to that, so we included her email as well, so she could go over that with the committee or with the board, I'm sorry. And hopefully we can adopt a document today.
Right. So I did send because I had a lot of questions and I wanted some clarification on things. So in your packet, I looked at the information that all of us had, and there was so much information in there. I thought, okay, if we can take it in small bites and have an actual plan at how we would achieve those. And I said, like in the next 18 months, what can we realistically do? So I looked at 3 target areas, and what I based that on was some of the information that we got from public survey and the areas that we were making some movement on and have addressed a little bit. So I thought, okay, the 3 target areas that I kind of put it through a sieve down. We have to answer the Headley issue. I guess that's been talked about, I heard in the last time since about 2017. And
Way longer.
or longer. Okay, I remembered that date. So I thought, okay, so my biggest ideas and concerns was we represent the public. We need to educate them and share and be really transparent. How do we do that? I'm not quite sure. We've been successful in some ways. Maybe we could have that same approach. So, and then we called it a reset, and you had explained the difference between the two. So I was pretty good with that. But the biggest thing was when I looked through all of this, I thought the public has to know and understand. And if we have that, then there's that transparency and you start building that knowledge base, but also that trust. So Headley was pretty straightforward for me. The next one was, I said, the internet. And what I heard from so many people when I was going around and campaigning was they wanted it like a utility. It was going to be a utility for the 21st century, if you will. So a lot of people started giving me input on that. The county government, from my understanding, could actually be an agency over it. So it's consistent throughout the county. And there is a word for that or a description of that. Because I was new to all this. The licensing franchise authority to be a entity over the whole county, so we don't have feudalism here, where there's many things or some things, I won't stress it with many, but there are things that government does well, things that government doesn't do well. We all follow the same traffic signals throughout the US. We all can use our electrics devices or whatever in Iowa and Michigan. You know, all of those things government does well. And it seems like to me that our broadband base, for us to take away from it being more piecemeal, and that way we as a county can, from my understanding, can oversee prices of things. So it's not going to change from township, village to county if we're under that, and we have that authority to do that. I only mentioned merit here because I knew that was one that we used for getting the information in the survey before. And they can do a lot of things for us as an entity. You know, they were developed by DOD, I believe, you know, in the internet and everything way back when. And they also do things like libraries and other public entities. So, but then you would have that last mile hookup. But if we are the county, then you're all united and sticking together as far as getting prices, again, from what I understand, and helping that. Now, that's the information I have. And I do have quite a bit of information on that, and I believe some of it has been sent. I saw that it had everyone's name on it, so, and it wasn't from me, it was from someone else. The third one, so the second item, internet as utility and us being united with it, at least from that level. The third one was childcare. I didn't really see, that was one of our big top 3 or 4 that the public, when surveyed, told us they wanted, and I didn't really see us addressing that. And so I thought it could be childcare, and I just put a word there, hybrid. And what I meant by that is there's room for, could Benzie, Art's not here, okay? Could Benzie be an example of offering that as a benefit to our county employees? I know in our last discussion, we talked about, or it was presented to us about a possible child in the workplace pilot. And that had some pros and cons from a variety of people. But I thought, why can't we, as a county, step forward and say, you know, this is a benefit for people to have that childcare. And however we resolve it, whether it's buying a building, leasing it for $1, letting private agencies in there to run it, whatever, but it sets us up as an example, and I think a very good model for other counties to follow. Why shouldn't they follow us? We do a lot of things really, really well that maybe at one point in time we're going to be kicked to the side. You know, our senior center has become awesome with what they provide, and that was dismissed at one time. We didn't give up on them. The same with the Maples, showing how well they organize as compared. We didn't give up on them. Our bus system, we didn't give up on them. We've got a lot of really good things here, and I think we're right for the childcare and the broadband. Headley, I think we're going to do that, but that's what inspired me. It just really, when I left our strategy meeting, and I know they worked really hard, it's hard to compile all these different ideas from us and tried. I just went, I mean, I was up, it just really bothered me. And I thought, I have so many people, which all of us do, I'm sure, talking to me and saying, you know, they don't see us as being responsive. And I think if we can get it in these small increments in 3 areas that really mean something to people, you're going to build that trust and that understanding, which is going to help all of us. So I didn't mean to be on a pulpit here,
Oh, that's okay.
but I just feel really heartfelt on this. And the broadband is going to make a difference for us, folks, for everyone. And we might as well have some control over that to make it a whole.
So in a sense, we do have some control over the broadband. So we contracted or partnered with Cherry Capital Communication,
Yep.
Merit before that to do the survey. And so part of our partnership with Cherry Capital Communication was to kind of have our finger on the pulse and hopefully be at the table. Well, we will be at the table as far as expanding broadband in Benzie County. When we put together that partnership, we were very adamant that we wanted the unserved served first, and those that were barely served next, and then those who are
Jesus.
correct.
Roll it out.
And so that's how we're approaching that, you know, as we work through that. We do have a project on the line for $5.2 million. We did apply for a $5 million grant to the MyHigh office through Robin. And today Cherry Capital Communications is having a phase 2 meeting with the MyHigh office, which shows a lot of interest in our project here in Benzie County. If that grant comes through, that's $10.2 million that we're collectively investing into Benzie County specifically for broadband. Benzie County has been talking about broadband for a long time, is my understanding. The prior administrator, Mitch, talked about it for a very long time. And I know that through a series of meetings, they really did determine that it didn't make sense for Benzie County to own the infrastructure or to own the service, but to partner with it. We don't have the capacity to own that infrastructure. And we're not telecommunications experts here. So that's why we've been partnering with these other agencies to fulfill that need here in Benzie County. And I know that the EDC and the rest of you have been very committed to that project. And so, and I know it's one of my top priorities, whether I like it or not, getting emails day in and day out over broadband. We're going to see that through. And so where we fit into controlling the price. So if you go through the contract that we do have with Cherry Capital Communications, that partnership agreement, we stress the affordability of broadband in Benzie County, and that Robin application to the state of Michigan actually illustrated a method for many folks in Benzie County to receive internet for free or $30 a month. And so that's huge as well. And that was part of our impact in making sure that it's affordable, is that we're tying the prices with the federal programs that are in place to make that internet cost affordable for the community in Benzie County, because we know that there's a lot of people in the community who they can't afford $80 for internet. And so these programs that are in place, we're stressing that day in and day out to the providers. The other really neat idea that we've partnered with in Benzie County for broadband is creating this consortium. So Cherry Capital Communications with Eclipse Communications and Peninsula Fiber Network, they're all working together on this project. And the whole idea of that is to help drive down the prices.
No
And
Spectrum in there?
no, Spectrum is not part of that. And so this is to help drive down the prices. And this is to encourage choice in Benzie County. So Peninsula Fiber Network and Cherry Capital Communications, their big role in that is to provide the infrastructure, so to sort of provide the line. And then the consortium allows smaller providers like Eclipse Communication, who maybe don't have the capital to expand the infrastructure, but it allows them to utilize the infrastructure in place and provide the service. And the idea of that consortium is that other small providers like Eclipse could come in and use the infrastructure to provide the service. And when you provide choice to the community, naturally that drives down the price. And so that's another thing that we're working on as well as a county with those other folks to help drive down the price and control that market.
But
Called an
why
open
is-
access model.
I'm sorry.
It's called an open access model.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the term. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but thank you. I am familiar with that term. But my concern, or I don't understand why Spectrum isn't included with the rest of them. That's a long.
So Spectrum, I've met with Spectrum various times when I first started in Benzie County. And at the end of the day, they're a very, very large conglomerate that's not willing to work with the counties and with the local municipalities. They say that they will, but at the end of the day, they will own the service and they will provide their prices, period. Whereas this open access model gives the ability for other organizations to join on in to provide the service, giving choice to the community. Charter is charter. That's what you're getting. You're going to pay their price, and there's no option other than that. When there's no choice with charter. Whereas with this other model, it provides choice. Charter didn't want to be part of that choice. It's them or nothing.
Unfortunately, I mean, to your thought, which was very well thought out and spoken, Karen, it's territorial in our
Yes,
county.
it is.
And because of the RDOF, the reverse auction that was held, Charter Communications has certain segments of our community, out Bob's Way and Evans Way, where they have access to those lines and they don't work with other entities.
Nope.
And so Cherry Capital has areas where they can have impact, but they can't cross the lines into where Charter has impact. So
Not
these
with
maps
the-
that prevail,
Not with the Robin grant dollars.
right?
They can cross those lines. They just can't use the Robin grant dollars to do it.
Correct.
Mhm.
But we've made it a priority that we don't want to overbuild. So there's various funding buckets. I see your confused face, Karen.
Well, no.
So there's various funding buckets. Yeah, so there's the RDOF, which is the reverse auction through the federal government, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. There's the Robin grant that we just applied for through the Michigan My High office. The Digital Opportunity Fund was funding specific that the county didn't have any part of. The telecommunication entities put in grant applications to the federal government for spaces all around the country. If you look at the RDOF maps, you can see where there's money that's been awarded to various telecommunications all around the country. Charter won a great deal of Benzie County. Cherry Capital won a little bit of Benzie County. And then there was Mercury Wireless as well. That money was very specific to those folks that they had to fulfill certain check boxes within a certain amount of time. And if they didn't, the feds are taking back the money. So Charter Spectrum was in Benzie County because they won those sections of land per the RDOF, and they had to build or the feds were taking back the money. Same with Cherry Capital. Mercury Wireless, to my understanding, hasn't really gotten off the ground. So I don't know what's going to happen with their funding. But that's part of the big push of why you're seeing not only in Benzie County, but all around, you're seeing so much activity with broadband, is because there was a lot of federal money that was given to these telecommunication providers, but they said you had to expand in this amount of time, and it had to be in the ground, and it had to be all these things. So they have these things that they have to meet. That funding is separate from the MyHigh funding, the Robin funding. The Robin funding through the state of Michigan ultimately came from the federal government, given to Michigan, and then they're putting it out through the Robin grant funding. All different buckets of money with all different requirements. We can't overbuild an RDOF section with Robin grant funding, because that's one of the requirements. So if Cherry Capital or Eclipse or anybody were going to overbuild another section that say charter owned, they wouldn't be able to use certain grant funding for that. They would have to use some of their own capital for that or other funding, because the grant funding doesn't allow them to overbuild, because the idea is to get everybody connected, and overbuilding doesn't really meet that ultimate goal of getting everybody connected. So we're driving people to build where there's no connection now. And the ultimate goal is then to overbuild, which then drives down costs as well.
And just to muddle it a little bit further, the Merit line that you allude to runs down the corridor.
Yep.
And you can tie in as a public entity. So the libraries that you talk about are the government building, but if the Merit line runs past a residence, and many residents have complained about this, they can't hook into it. That's
Correct.
not what its purpose is. And so it's kind of a muddled concept. It seems like that would make sense to tie off of Merit, but I don't believe that's an option for us to expand throughout the county.
So Merit all along, their articles of incorporation and how they were put together was to provide broadband for local government, hospitals, schools, libraries. So nobody else could touch them. They were kind of the superior for those entities. Through all of this, broadband has been such a hot topic now since COVID. And so through all of that, Merit has doctored their articles of incorporation where they're willing to be that middle provider in certain instances. And so you could partner with them to basically be the last mile off of their middle mile connection. That is an opportunity, but that's brand new. And so we are so far down the path at Cherry Capital, that's a new idea. You know what I mean? So that really wasn't an option when we were going through all of this. It really wasn't an option because they couldn't. Their only option for tying off charter was for us to be then the provider, which Benzie County is not in any position to be a telecommunications provider. We don't really provide any utilities. That's typically a local jurisdiction municipality offering, not typically counties. And so we weren't in the business to be the provider of the telecommunications. And at the time when we were working out these other ideas with Cherry Capital and Eclipse and those sorts of things, it wasn't an option unless we were the provider.
For education for the public, and I don't know if we have this already or not, do we have like specific addresses you will be getting internet by kind of thing?
So right now, what we have is all conceptual and confidential. We haven't published anything yet because we're waiting on the MyHigh application, because it's my belief, as well as Tim Malone from Cherry Capital, why publish a map based on a $5 million project when we may have a $10 million project? And so once we get the word on that other funding, whether it's good or not, then we're going to work to provide a web location and mapping so that folks can see, are they part of a build out and when? So that is coming. That's part of the plan. But we haven't really published anything yet because we're in the midst of this $5 million grant. And so we may be dealing with a $5 million project, but we may be dealing with a $10 million project.
Okay,
And
so that's understandable. But I think that's information that I didn't know before just that sentence that you just spoke to us. And then the internet that they will have, will it be at adequate speed?
They have to.
It has to go both ways.
It has to be. That's the requirement of all this funding, is that you have to have symmetrical service. RDOF was a minimum of wasn't 100 by 30, I think was the RDOF requirement. And then the
25, but yeah.
might have been 125. It was right around there. And then the Robin funding had higher speeds yet. And I know that Cherry Capital is committed to providing symmetrical service. So the 100 by 100. Yeah, so I would like to remind everybody, including the public, that if you go to the Cherry Capital Connection website, under their project page, there's a Benzie County project page. On there has tons of information about the project to date. It also does have a high level map where you can see the general areas of the proposed build out. But again, that map doesn't include the potential of the additional 5 million from MyHigh. So more detailed maps would be coming in the future. But if you go to that CCC fiber, and then go to the projects page in Benzie County, it does have some of that high level stuff on there that may answer a lot of questions for the community. And that's a public website that everybody is encouraged to access.
You give a little bit more technical information.
It is a bit more
RDOF.
technical. So it's cccfiber.com. And right at the top, it says projects. And then if you it's a drop down, and then you can click the Benzie County project, and it's a wealth of information on that page.
I was gonna say the RDOF requirements and the Robin requirements. They're talking fiber to the homes.
Yes.
And the different carriers I talk to, they are providing equipment that can do gigabit up and down. It just depends on different packages that people want to purchase from them.
Okay.
And actually, these gigabit up and down is actually probably gonna be closer to probably 10 gigs up and down.
Okay.
Was there any other questions about broadband?
I have one question here, and these are just that people ask me, so I dashed them down for myself.
That's great.
It says here. It says, note that Spectrum currently offers symmetrical gigabyte service in Platte Township. Have they actually signed the agreement? It says the PDF version online is not signed.
I wouldn't know anything about charter operations. They're a private business, and they're working on their own private accord. So I'm not sure what you're
And I
referring
think
to.
That's an issue too. I mean, they've got a big part of Benzie County, yet they're not, who's our project manager for this,
What do you mean?
for the broadband?
Myself and Tim Malone.
Oh, okay, from Cherry Capital. So you guys
Yeah.
are the project managers.
So we had initial
So they
meetings
look
with.
at everyone.
We've had initial meetings with Marilyn Passmore of Charter Communications, and this has been a stress and a frustration for the board, for the EDC, for the broadband subcommittee since the beginning, is that Charter Spectrum is a private entity that wants to do their thing, and they happily wanted all of our ARPA dollars. I will tell you that flat out. They happily wanted it all, but they controlled the infrastructure and would not allow anyone else to use it at the end of the day, which now they have the mass market and they can charge the $80 to $100
This
a
is
month.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So to have the other one, the open access, you know, I hope they can compete. So it's not a monopoly foisted on us. I
Right.
mean, that's where, to me, a project manager is somebody, and this is just looking it up online, okay, to get a definition, so I'm not overstepping there. But the project manager oversees all the entities involved. It doesn't exclude you because you're a private company.
Charter doesn't want to come to the table, and that's what I want to stress. So we even hired Mitch Shapiro to help consult with the broadband project, who is he's worked for Merit. He's a well versed PhD in the telecommunications world, and Charter does not want to come to the table, and they don't have to, and we can't make them, and they're doing their own thing. And too bad we just don't have control. We don't have control over them. We never will. We have a lot of great players at the table who know the lingo a lot better than I do. And at the end of the day, Charter isn't looking to partner, they're looking to overtake. And that's a problem that we see as a county, because now they have the commodity and we can't force them to lower their prices and, compete in any way.
That's why I started with the government entity, if we could do that.
Benzie County does not have the capacity or the funding to be a telecommunications utility provider. We simply do not. I don't even know of any counties other than maybe Washtenaw in the state of Michigan that are in that service. Most counties do not provide those kind of utilities, especially in Michigan.
City of Gaylord.
The city of
has
Gaylord
their
may.
own thing, but I also think that Spectrum is required based on income to offer that $30 a month.
And they do.
They do.
They do.
So I mean, it's
Yep.
not that they're completely out of this, but
then
we're a government entity. We don't need to be controlling private business.
It's not great.
And we do the best we can. And we sure don't want to be a competitor. That's where, what I understand what Karen's talking about, that's where we would be heading. And at one point in time, Merritt offered to sell us a couple strands so we could branch off. We can't do that. It's just like Katie says, we don't have the expertise and we don't want to be there. Government is not supposed to do everything for you. Just, and this is one of those things that's questionable to me. I think we're gonna get there. It's not gonna happen overnight. Tim was at Weldon the other night. And we're talking down the road years before we're gonna be hooked up, but we're heading that direction. We can't have it tomorrow.
No,
And I wish people could fully understand that concept, but.
Well, that'll come with the education too.
Yes, they're building like crazy. A lot of this funding that's being received by all the telecommunication providers have time limits on it. So we're going to see a lot of activity across the state of Michigan over the next few years because most of the money has the time limitations because it's ARPA dollars, it's infrastructure dollars. So they all have time limits on them. So we're going to see a lot of activity all around the state of Michigan, specifically for this topic, because it is a priority in Lansing and it's a priority in Washington, D.C. And so we're going to see a lot of that. Part of the Robin Grant funding is to provide that education piece. It's called digital equity. It's the term that the federal government and the state of Michigan have loosely thrown out over and over again with no real definition. So we're all making it up as we go. So what we believe digital equity is that educational piece. It's that training piece to show people how they can use it, why they should use it, and that sort of thing. And that is an element of the funding that Cherry Capital is working to obtain. So part of that funding will include this huge digital equity piece, which is that education to the community as to what, how, why, and where. And so that will be part of the rollout of this project, is that big education piece.
Just as a general observation for your three items that you picked, the Headley reset, broadband, and childcare. As I look at our high level strategic priorities, I mean, it seems, I don't think you would be misquoting anything or misinforming if you did tell the entities that you visit that we are working on those three. I mean, and they are a goal. Fiscal health and responsibility is number 2 on the high priority. That to me definitely encompasses the Headley reset, and staff administration has put together a really detailed informational pamphlet about why we are where we are, discussing, the millage verbiage in 1982 and why we need to change that, why we're one of the only counties that has that still remaining. And then childcare to me would fall under enhanced county services. That's a broader goal. We are very open. We realize it was identified by the community. We just haven't been approached yet with anything that's viable to contribute ARPA monies to. And, if there were a project that we could get on board with, that would be great. And then the third, the broadband, I think definitely economic development activities is one of the 5 broader forms, which to me encompasses a forward motion that we have going there with broadband, which is definitely it's been worked on intently for years now and ramped up efforts to date. So we are headed in the right direction, I think.
And I think both of those two would loosely fit under the infrastructure and space needs, because we talk about the infrastructure, childcare would be infrastructure, the fiber is infrastructure. And so the idea of this is to provide the overarching, direction of where we're going. And then it's up to the board and the staff to pinpoint the specific goals that meet those overarching. But this is our direction. We know we need to work on infrastructure. Okay, what part of infrastructure is the priority for 2023 and 2024? So that's this is our general direction. And then we'll get down into those more, localized goals of that sort. What I got.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate both your, your points on that. And I just got it down to these three because that's what I hear a lot. And childcare, they want to, people that have talked to me want to see some kind of solution. So that's why I just pitched some ideas. What about the county being as a benefit? We can start there or not. It's an idea, okay? Have the building, rent it out, let people, the county can have their children there. And then as a starting point, and then the greater public, say you have 15 other spaces, Benzie County residents get you. Then they're seeing some fruition to these ideas. And I think that's the frustration, because the survey was done and they thought, okay, they know what we want. I understand, Gary, that you're saying it takes time, glacial speed. I get it. But to see something.
What was that word?
Glacier. And I do want to offer too that our administrator is very, very aware of the childcare need.
I understand.
And
Yeah.
we have looked at this building and there's just licensing requirements that the space needs that the county owns right now can't comply with for offering childcare. So it would definitely be, it would be a new endeavor and it would have to be in a different space, not to say that it couldn't work.
Right.
But we would have to look at it with fresh eyes, but it has been looked at.
Definitely. Childcare is always at the top of my mind because I have kids in childcare and I completely understand the stress of new parents. I really do. It took me, I was on a waiting list for a daycare when I was, 6 weeks pregnant. Because that's the nature that we live in, and us parents, that's what we know we have to do.
Right.
And so I know it's very, very important. I have spoke with Josh Stoltz 100 times about childcare and the great work that they're doing at Girl Benzie with the Human Services Collaborative and other groups relating to childcare. And so we're always brainstorming ideas. And I think the whole region is looking for a solution. We're all looking for a solution of how we can help new families with their kids, because we want people to come to work while moms can't come to work if there's no childcare. And so I think we're all looking for a solution in the region. Even Terry Vandenberg talked about it with Networks Northwest. They're looking for solutions. And so, Infant in the Workplace is a creative, crazy solution. Owning a building is another creative solution. And so, I know Josh Stoltz does plan to come to the board in June to talk about the work that they're doing on the Human Services Collaborative and to make a pitch for an ARPA request. We just haven't gotten there yet because we're still talking about it on the back end. So that request is coming for ARPA dollars to the Board of Commissioners soon. So there's so many great groups working on it, and it's important that Benzie County is part of the conversation. You're at those meetings, and so we kind of rely on you to be part of our voice for that, and so we're happy for that. And we know it's an important thing that Benzie County needs. We're talking about it. We're thinking about it. We're trying to find creative solutions. Just to be frank, the licensing for childcare is the biggest hoops you would ever imagine. And that's out of our control.
We're grateful.
Yeah, and that's completely out of our control. And so there's only so much that we can do. So that's a hard one. It's a hard one.
Yeah, I understood. I understand what you're saying. Those were my three when I looked at it, and I thought,
I think they're great. I love your thoughts. I think that those are really three goals that tie into this overarching strategies that we have here in front of us. And I think those are things that we continue to work on as more individual goals. So, I mean, you've kind of accomplished the next step for us after this plan's adopted by identifying some goals. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. It's a great conversation.
Thanks, Bob.
Item C.
Well,
I'm gonna first recommend that the Board of Commissioners adopts the Benzie County Strategic
Oh, sorry.
Priorities, Goals, and Actions dated May 9th, 2023.
Marky will support.
you didn't say it with any excitement.
Yeah,
He's still on
That's
the
smart.
that's
internet.
all you got, Tim?
Wait a second. You want me to redo that, Katie?
You're supposed to say, I support.
Hearing none, roll call.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
No,
Markey,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
motion carried.
Now item C, consider adapting cyber incident policy.
So Rebecca Hubers touched on this lightly in her department head update regarding that policy plan that is that we have right now. We didn't put it in the packet, you know, from a emergency standpoint. We don't want to share all of our inner workings. And so this is a policy that adopts the plan. And so if anyone would like to see the plan on the board, we're happy to go over that plan with you. But I can tell you that the plan is a pretty standard plan. We use the Michigan State Police's plan as our template, and then we modified from there. And so this policy adopts the plan, and it's one of those check boxes for various reasons, court security, the court, you know, state court audits, our purposes in general for response. And so that's what this policy does.
so with that, I'll make the motion, the Board of Commissioners adopt cyber incident response policy, which adopts the cyber incident response plan.
second. Or whoever.
It's a short one. That's the only reason I read it.
The motion and support, any further discussion? Roll call.
Cunningham,
Yes,
Markey,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item D. Consider adopting the personnel file policy.
So this is another policy, another personnel policy. I've talked about for almost 2 years now that it's the goal of administration to get the policies taken care of. So we're hammering them out now. So this is the personnel file policy. This policy is one of those overarching policies to provide to staff. It provides guidance to the employees as to their rights, their responsibilities, and what their personnel record means, who can see it, what they can do with it as far as what we hold in HR for employees. And so this policy really just sets the structure for that.
I have a question, I guess. Is this? You said this went to legal,
Mhm.
so things were taken out. Also, I wanted to ask if employees are actually reviewing their personnel files somewhat. I know it was a big issue when I worked at the post office.
Not since I started in December, has anyone asked to review their personnel file, but it's a good policy to have in place just so employees are aware of what their rights are. For example, if they had a disciplinary action in there, they have a right to respond to it and leave it in their personnel file. That's one of the examples. So it's just something to have on file. We previously didn't have anything in place, so I thought it was important to bring forward to the board and make sure they're aware of their rights.
I like that aspect, and I think you should encourage employees
Mhm.
to periodically come in and look at them, because things get put in there that maybe shouldn't have been put in
What are
there.
you saying?
I'm going back to the post office.
We're
That help?
post office.
I know,
So
just saying.
it sounded like the start of a motion to me.
Let me read that one too.
Yeah.
Let's see where, the Board of Commissioners adopted personnel file policy and add it to the staff manual.
yeah, support.
Motion and support, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye.
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
motion carried.
Item F. Adopting the fraud policy.
we got rid
Yeah,
of
this
it.
policy is just being brought forth as kind of an expansion of what we currently had. It was pretty limited. And so this is just getting more clarifying points and just getting a broader view of the scope. So the previous one is in there. It's just more of an expansion and talking about the rights and how to process anything if it were to occur. It's more procedural.
Gonna make the motion, the Board of Commissioners adopts the anti-fraud policy to replace the old policy listed in the staff policy manual.
Mark, you'll support.
Thank you. Motion and support, further discussion, roll call please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item G. Adopting the tobacco smoke-free policy.
This is another expansion of our current policy. In general, it's basically just adding vape to the vapes. We want to be sure to include that in the policy and making sure that no one is utilizing that on inside county buildings. And then just cleaning up where you're allowed to smoke, which is basically in the marked smoking areas of the building.
Not in the building, outside the
Outside.
building.
Sorry, inside. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
With that, I'll move that the Board of Commissioners adopts the tobacco smoke-free workplace policy to replace the old policy listed in the staff policy manual.
Support.
Motion and support, further discussion.
That includes, you, I take it.
Yeah, yes, it
So
does.
we have a spittoon out there by the picnic table. Just saying,
I mean,
just don't pick up an empty beer bottle. Anyway, just curious because I
it does include you.
Pick up a full.
Any other comments?
I just couldn't resist.
I know.
Thank you.
Roll call please.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item H, consider adopting the adoption and administration policy.
Oh, this is a policy basically talking about how we bring policies to you. So
Sure. Just kind of having a meeting to have a meeting.
it's one of them that was currently in place and we just again expanded on it and cleaned up procedural issues. So now you can see how we bring, it essentially says that if we change or amend policies, it has to go before the board for approval.
All right, I'll make that motion. You want me to read it? Or you?
Yeah, I do.
The Board of Commissioners adopts the adoption and administration policy to replace the old policy listed in the staff policy manual. I was thinking about lunch.
Motion and support, further discussion, roll call please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item I, consider adopting the disciplinary action policy.
This policy is expanding, again, on what we currently have in place. It mirrors similar to what we have in all of the union contracts. So this particular policy only applies to non-union, non-elected. So we just thought it would be important to have a similar timeframe. We already implement a similar procedure for these employees based on the union contract. So we thought this would be a good way to reiterate that and just bring that forward and have something actually in place.
Good.
The recommendation that the Board of Commissioners adopts the disciplinary action policy and rescinds all related policies.
Motion and support. Any further discussion?
Just one question. Does that get brought up in the union negotiations often and changed any?
No.
It's a step disciplinary, so it's pretty traditional. So I haven't been through union negotiations, so I can't speak to that specifically, but I anticipate that there wouldn't be too many changes.
Minimal.
If any at all.
Yeah, if it does get brought up, it's regarding timeframes. So the collective bargaining agreements have timeframes set in place regarding the steps of disciplinary. So there's, 5 days to respond to this, 10 days to respond to that. If anything changes, is my understanding, it's usually timeframes. At one time, I think it was 2 or 3 days, and everybody agreed that 2 or 3 days just doesn't always work. And so it was expanded to 5 or 10 days. And so, but as far as the process itself, it doesn't ever really change.
That did change. Reflect in this policy later.
Sure, yeah, I would be happy to amend it. I think the biggest difference is also a look back on how far back you can go for particular instances. This one in particular says 12 months, but I believe the union contracts has 2 years. So it's a little bit smaller of a time frame, but that's the biggest difference between the two.
Thank you.
Mhm.
There's no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item J, consider adapting the nepotism policy.
This again is just an expansion on a current one, just to talk more about procedurals and more specifics.
Typically, we
There's
don't.
not, it's just basically an expansion on what we currently have.
What it's saying is that I can't hire my daughter to work under me, but the clerk could hire my daughter to work in her office because I'm not overseeing that person. That's kind of a generalization of the policy is, you're not hiring direct family members to be your subordinate.
Mhm. Correct.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Commissioners adopts the nepotism policy and rescinds all related nepotism policies.
9 seconds.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Roll call.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Right.
Comment.
Yes.
So I would just offer, once we get, and Jackie and I have had this conversation, once we get all these policies updated in the place we want to be, because it's been a long time coming that these were reviewed and created and get in a good place. I think the best practice would be is to put them on a rotational basis. I've seen this done where they come before the board either annually or biannually, even just to say no changes are necessary. So the board is aware of what the policies are. We are inclined to make changes if they're necessary. What tends to happen is these policies get made, they get put in a book and they get put in a shelf. And then new people come in and they aren't aware of what they are. So I would offer that the places that I've seen it done the most effectively is the policy is handed out, it's reviewed, changes are proposed or no changes at all. And there's a sheet on the top that says this was reviewed on this date. And that goes along with the policy. So I just think it's a best practice that we could implement here that'll keep these fresh once they're created, keeping your good work up to date.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that we can absolutely implement. We're hoping to have it done, I know, soon.
We need to have a policy on the policy.
Policy on the policy.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Item K, consider entering into a contract for equalization fieldwork services.
So in your packet is the proposals for fieldwork for equalization. As you know, we have almost a whole new role of equalization downstairs. Tom Longenbach retired. We had an interim director. Brian is now the director. So we've been recruiting for folks to serve in the equalization department for quite some time now. We were recruiting for an appraiser too, which is the person who would handle a lot of this field work. But we were unsuccessful in finding somebody to serve in that role because an appraiser too is a state certification that the pool's pretty limited. So what we did is we moved forward with hiring an additional administrative position down there. So that secretarial administrative assistant type position with the idea of growing from within. So to grow those folks down there to fit this role in the future. But in the meantime, there's field work that does have to be done. It's required by the State Tax Commission to do certain elements every single year when it comes to field work. And so we need to get those things done. And so in front of you are 3 proposals for the fieldwork services, and Brianne, Lindsay, and myself are recommending that Dr. Mark Holly complete those services for us for 2023. The idea of this contract is that it may not be long-term if we're able to grow from within, but we won't take it off the table that we won't always contract for these services. So we'll do what's best for Benzie County in our belief. But for now, the intent is to get us through the year and continue to evaluate what's the best path moving forward for Benzie County. And so what's in front of you today is to enter into simply a 1-year contract with Dr. Mark Holly for fieldwork services to assist Brianne. And if there's questions, Brianne is here.
Yeah. Nice. Have you met Dr. Mark Holly?
He actually did attend some equalization classes with me when I was down in St. John's. So I was able to meet him. He actually did stop in our office as well because he did apply for the field appraiser position initially. We interviewed him. He wasn't as interested. He was interested in contracting. So that's kind of how we found that out.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's important to have met
Yeah.
the person and
Yep.
know if,
Yeah.
if you think he'll work well together and he'll be.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's a very well-educated person and he actually provides these services for quite a few counties is our understanding. And we haven't heard bad remarks on his service. So
Based on this contract amount, what will be the requirement of time or do you have that?
So we already have the parcels selected and based on his contract, he'll have everything done by September 30th. So that's actually quite early compared to past years.
yeah,
So,
4 months-ish.
yeah.
How many parcels
Ooh, I do have a parcel count in the proposals.
roughly?
Ooh,
It was 139 commercial parcels, 23 industrial and 71 agricultural parcels.
Requirement by the state or
yeah, so that is actually a percentage of each class within each township. And that's a recommendation by the Michigan Association of Equalization Directors. That is the percentage that they recommend.
so should there be a not to exceed amount on this contract or is there?
So his price is based on those counts.
Mhm.
So Brian provided him the counts, he provided a price.
Compensation by each of these or
Mhm.
And without that position being filled for so long, this is in budget, right?
Most of it. Yeah,
There's been some, yeah.
Yeah.
Shifting around.
not the whole thing,
Because we have Holly.
correct,
right.
yeah.
Well, with that said, I will make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approves a one-year contract with Dr. Mark Holly, complete appraisal service in the total amount annual amount of $23,300. Such contract subject to approval as to its form by legal counsel and authorizes the chair to sign.
Mark, you will support.
There's motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
yes,
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Letter L, approve copy machine and service agreements with that link for the sheriff's office.
These are pretty standard agreements. We do have them in place for other departments within the county organization, and we have been working to streamline some of these. So for instance, my office is on the same agreement as equalization in the common area copy machine. So these ones pertain specifically to the sheriff's office devices up the hill. This is for maintenance of those devices as well, including replacement toner. So we don't have to buy the toner. And so, like I said, this is a pretty standard 3-year agreement for the maintenance and service of those devices up the hill.
this is the same company we.
Correct.
Here, correct.
Yes.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the 3 agreements with NetLink Business Solutions for a period of 36 months for copy machines in the sheriff's office and the estimate total annual amount of $1,800.
I'll support.
Motion and support. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item M,
So item M is an application for a 2% allocation tribal grant. This is specific to the body scanner. Through our conversations of getting to the point where we decided we did want to purchase a body scanner, we talked about applying for grants. So this is to apply for funding for that device to the tribe. And just as a excitement, I got confirmation that we also received the grant through the MMRMA, which is $43,000. So that $43,000 is coming to the county soon. And then this 2% tribal grant is for $48,000. And so the total cost is $125,000. So you take out the 48 and then the 43, the actual amount coming from the county is quite small. So that's pretty exciting. It's my understanding that the device should be installed in June, July. Do you recall, Rebecca? I want to say June, July is when that device is supposed to be up there in the sheriff's office. So this is just to apply for that grant.
I'll make a motion that we accept the Board of Commissioners approves the grant application for tribal council allocation of 2% funding for the total body scanner and authorizes the chair to sign.
I'll support.
Motion and support, further discussion, roll call.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
All righty, we'll move on to commissioner reports. And I see how diligent most of you are to get yours in over in the packet. I had a little confusion, but there was a couple items that I wanted to bring up. I was invited to the New Covenant Christian Academy's first graduation ceremony that happens at Fresh Winds Community Church. Pastor Chuck and Colin Towersy, myself, Representative Vanderwall, Representative Roth, County Sheriff, Inland Township Supervisor, the school board, the church board, and a whole bunch of residents got together for graduation services of Jordan Turner. Only gentleman graduating from this class of 2023.
Starting.
It was very, very nice. And of course, you guys know me. I know a lot of people that were there. So some that I hadn't seen for years, but it was really nice to be invited and really nice to be involved. So it was a pleasure. And either Pastor Chuck or Pastor Colin will be doing the Memorial Day celebration at the Veterans Memorial. So they'll be doing the benediction and the invocation. So I just wanted to bring those two up. Otherwise, I attended the agenda review.
That's the joke every week.
Yeah, right. Union negotiations. And there was a couple more that I didn't get a chance to get on paper. So that's all. Yeah, everybody else's, if there's any questions, fire away.
I don't think Commissioner Worsakki included his.
I did not because I was out of the state on vacation. So I had.
Requested it all.
I just.
I could have put on paper that I golfed so many days and how bad my score was and, but no, I was on vacation, so I have nothing to report because I wasn't here.
I had two
Think
meetings.
so.
I had two meetings I hadn't attended by the time we had to submit the report, which I did. So I had the MAC Health and Human Services meeting. There was a presentation by Carolyn Messerschmidt. She is the nutrition and food management consultant from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and she gave a whole presentation on obesity and food insecurities. And then the legislative update, which I thought was interesting, given at that meeting, was Michigan is the only state without statewide septic code. And the person giving this update is predicting that this every 5-year inspection is going to get some legs in the legislature. MAC is supporting and is going to fight for an every 10-year inspection and to keep the point of sale inspections. If the legislation as it stands moves forward, it'll just be a 5-year inspection on everything and point of sale will go away. So, and then I also attended the EDC meeting last Friday. The EDC still, we just had a quorum there. So we're still looking for a clear set of directions on which way to move, kind of a little identity crisis going on how best to serve Benzie County. So different options are being considered and that conversation continues. We had a presentation by the MEDC to assist in that endeavor, and they shared some important information. And then we also had a lengthy conversation about considering a partnership with Grow Benzie to fulfill the digital equity portion of the beads or the Robin grant, should it be granted. And that conversation will move forward as well. No decisions were made or recommendations at that time. That's all I have.
Question, Miranda? Anybody else have any highlights they want to bring up?
Not highlights, I do have some additions to mine. Again, I attended a meeting since I'd have this submitted. I attended the MAC Judiciary and Public Safety Commission or Committee. And just so Commissioner Warsecki is aware, they ask for him every single time you're on that committee.
I am.
Yes. So you haven't been attending, just so you know.
They will kick you off if you don't attend.
I didn't know
Yeah,
I was on it.
Pardon?
I didn't know I was on it.
Well, they ask for you every single time.
They should have sent you an email.
No.
Okay.
Anyways, at that committee, they did bring up the state septic system code. And we talked quite a bit about that and Rhonda covered that rather well. And the same things were said that at that committee. There's some discussion around the redo of the Shirkey bill that is sponsored by Kirk Vanderwall. It is Mac's opinion that that is not going anywhere. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Tim.
That was the,
Privatization of community mental health.
that's what I thought. He wants,
It has to do with his redistricting and his constituents, people in his area now.
yeah.
We
'cause
talked about that at Central
that's
Wellness too.
pretty much where the problem lies, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it at the Central Wellness Network board as well.
Do you show two of us on it then or one? 'Cause you've been going, right? Or been
I'm
attending?
emailing Dina right now and copying you and just
Okay.
saying, hey, Evan's not receiving this stuff so that you can, because they should be sending you links to the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I haven't.
Interesting.
I was on it.
I
Hope
do-
you represented me well.
I did. I said, Evan's out golfing.
And I have one thing that I'd like to share. I did submit my report, so you have that. Frankfurt City Council is looking at having an ordinance for driving golf carts there. Then they had a public hearing after that, a couple days after that, that was pretty well attended. I found it interesting that the chief of police, Robert, is opposed to the idea. And most of the people that voiced opinions or submitted letters were opposed of the idea. I was assured by Brady Olson from the council that most of the people want to have golf carts, but whatever the case may be, I found it very interesting that is up for discussion there. The chief's issue about it was, and he gave me the law, and I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, that he thought somehow the commissioners or the county could be liable for things that happen in Frankfurt. When I looked at the law, I didn't see it that way. I'm not a lawyer, but he does have concerns about safety. And then other citizens had concerns about if I get sued, whatever, if I bump into a golf cart. It was a lot of different things. I just wanted to share that because as far as I know, does Beulah allow golf carts?
Hope so. We drive ours down there.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think Frankfurt I thought it was Beulah that they are legal there, I think.
Whatever they want to enforce.
Okay. And I think this is what the chief is worried about
But
is.
there's a difference between UTVs and golf carts
Right.
and there's different
Right,
calibers of
this
the
is
different.
golf
types of-
carts is what it says.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Annie.
Sorry, some are road ready.
Right.
Like if they have a license.
Yeah.
They can be approved.
Apparently there is, but anyways, I found it interesting that most of the public that were there and wrote were against it. Then there were some that were, but then the chief, and then when he said that the commission or the county might be liable in some way. I didn't see that in the law, but anyways, I just share that because it was interesting. And Crystal Lake is using the owl and they are broadcasting, you guys,
Great.
for their citizens near and far. I'm so proud of them for being that transparent and
Yeah.
sharing.
Right.
And the last meeting was very civil.
Here's
Good.
You act like that's new.
County Administrator's report.
Oh, Gary.
Gary.
Oh, Gary?
Yeah, because I will fill one out, so go ahead. Went to Weldon, home stretch was there. When Malone was there, they talked about the Cherry Capital Connection. And where we're going. At the road commission, the brining was supposed to start next week. That was on 5/11. I don't know if it has. Supposed to get going on that. The village of Thompsonville. They are going to do some bonds for their part of the loan. And of course, they're gonna raise the rates. Required to have 2 new wells. That's gonna be pretty expensive. And I went to the village of Alberta. They've got their bids in for their water system and they've decided not to do the well because the bid just to do the 1935 water mains is more than both combined. So that's not going anywhere. And I also went to the Weldon Planning Commission, and the discussion was on the new Crystal Commons, which is going to be the 8 units from home stretch and the end of the airport. And the Planning Commission voted to send it on to the Township Board with their approval to change it to a PUD. So that's kind of the first step. There's a lot more steps coming.
Did you say 8 units?
Yes.
8 of those buildings,
It's larger than that.
8 of those buildings. But it's going to be done in phases.
Yeah, it's, so the building in Honor, it's 8 of those.
8 of those.
That's my
buildings.
understanding.
60 Okay.
Yeah,
got
but
it.
then it's, and it's
Eight
phased.
residents in each one.
Right,
Okay.
there we go. Thank
So
you.
64.
So I didn't explain that well,
Okay.
but yeah, that's what they're looking to do.
So you trust me with the dollars.
Yeah, so we will see. The only other comment I made, and I don't know if I should be making it now, but
Don't.
well, I think that
Oh, no, gotta bring it.
Mrs. Hahn ought to be advised to go for some kind of loan through Laura or something like that.
I think she has been.
Just, I know she's left, but still having issues with what she's asking for, and I just think a loan is probably more appropriate. There you go, quit.
All right.
No, good suggestion.
County Administrator's report.
I don't have a ton. Just as a reminder, I've sent you the bids that were received by environment architects for the lower level expansion. So if you have questions or concerns or anything, please let myself, Rebecca, or Ray Kendra know. I do ask that you be prepared for discussion and recommendation on June 13th. Obviously, bids have timelines like any sector of the world. And so we do have somewhat of a timeline. So I'd like to get that taken care of on June 13th, if possible. We did receive 3 bids, which was great. Because we are in a market right now where getting bids is sometimes hard for projects. And so receiving 3 was great. So if you just want to look through those and be prepared for June 13th, I would appreciate that. And the only other thing is after today, I am at Crystal Mountain the rest of the week. So if you need me, call my cell phone. I'm at a county administrators conference out there. So just call my cell phone if you need me.
Good job keeping it close to home.
I know, right? I was asked if I was staying and I said, I live like 12 miles away. I can't stay.
Given any more of these?
They were on the back table. I think people in the audience did take some.
Okay.
And then they're on the website as well.
Okay.
But any questions for me? Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Study session, no minutes from that. I don't see any committee appointments. Unfinished business, there's none. New business. Correspondence. Brings us to our last public comment. Amy?
I'm Annie Browning. I'm from the Village of Beulah, and I like to stay to the end of the meetings. I kind of like it when it's quiet in here.
Me
So,
too.
yeah, and I get to reflect on everything that was said the whole time. So some things I heard like that seemed like trends are importance of planning commissions and planning. They were coming into play a lot. So I'm really happy to be involved in that in the Village of Beulah. And then another thing that I heard was kind of like a trend for money that's going out is emergency preparedness. And so I'm thinking just that I love emergency preparedness should be in the master plan, right? So that's my takeaway. So I feel like mission accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Anybody else for public input? Close public input and look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.